Hello everybody! Last week we discussed the things you shouldn't do while world building, and today we're discussing the things you should do while world building. It's a lot of stuff. Before we get started, you might have noticed my wonderful t-shirt and thought, wow, that's the best t-shirt I've ever seen. Where on earth can I get one? Well, my incredibly fashion-forward viewer, you're in luck. I received this shirt from Cheriton, a company that designs tons of cool shirts in order to raise awareness for charity. Their goal is to raise awareness for charities that are extremely effective at what they do, but maybe aren't getting the support and publicity they deserve, which I think is an amazing objective. 30% of the profits from this shirt go directly to Cooperative for Education, which is an incredible charity promoting literacy and education in Guatemala. Most Guatemalan students drop out of school before reaching high school, and illiteracy rates in rural areas are up to 75%. So co-ed is all about changing that. If you want to help support co-ed, be sure to pick up a shirt. I've got a link in the description below. Even better, Cheriton was kind enough to offer my subscribers a special 10% discount code, so you can help a charity and save a little cash. If 100 people buy a shirt, co-ed could reach more than 2,000 students. So click that link and put your discount code to use. On to the topic. I'm breaking down the basics you need to determine when creating your fictional world. The first category we're going to cover is the setting, which basically covers the most general information about your world. And speaking of your world, what the hell is it called? By world, I don't mean the specific setting of your novel, I mean the planet that houses that setting. Maybe it's another plane of existence. Maybe it's a world floating in the sky high above the clouds. Next, you're going to figure out your planet's divisions, and by that, I mean continents, countries, and kingdoms. And once you got your world divided up like a pizza, it's time to give each slice a name. You don't have to name every country or every kingdom, but you should at least name the ones that are relevant to your story. Next, we think about subdivisions, villages, cities, or towns. And again, if they're applicable to your story, name them. And lastly is the most important step. Choose your setting. Where does your novel take place? Depending on your story, this could cover an entire globe, or it could be relegated to a single village. For example, the world you created could be called Cyborgia, but your story takes place specifically in the Jenna Kingdom. Pretty awesome names if I do say so myself. The next category to consider is flora, fauna, and climate. We're getting into nature. The easiest thing to nail down is the weather. Is your setting sunny? Is it rainy? Figure it out. Similarly, you want to consider the seasons, because not all places experience a traditional spring, summer, fall, and winter. I live in California. We don't do snow days. The next step is to consider the Earth, and more specifically, what the surface of the Earth looks like. Maybe everything is mud or dirt, maybe it's desert sand, maybe there's paved or cobblestone roads. The last two things to consider are plant life and animal life. Do you have lush green forests filled with bunnies, or hot pink jungles filled with poisonous snake monsters? It's your world. Do you? Moving on, we reach my least favorite part of world building, and that's architecture. You're gonna ask yourself three simple questions. Where do people live? What do the buildings look like? And what are they made out of? And make sure the architecture fits the climate and setting. A desert probably isn't gonna feature large wooden homes, unless they have substantial trade agreements. Try to get as detailed with your answers as possible, because the more thoroughly you world build, the easier writing will be. Now that we've moved on from the bitch that is architecture, we reach history, as in, what's the history of your setting? This is where a lot of writers get sucked into the never-ending world building abyss. So before you get started, be honest with yourself. How much of your world's history do you actually need to know in order to tell this story? About 75% of the time, all you really need to focus on are the defining moments. How was the kingdom born or created? How did the current government or leader come into power? Keep in mind, history is messy, so the more neat and orderly you make your world's backstory, the less believable it's gonna be. On to our next category. It's time to dissect your world's politics and other government systems. What's your setting system of government? Is it a monarchy? Is it a democracy? Is it an oligarchy? Who is the most powerful person or people in this world, and why? How are laws passed and enforced? Is there a military? Is there a judicial system? Is there a monetary system? Prisons, punishment, death penalty, public torture? Figure it out. Our next category is society, which is one of my favorite elements of world building. First, we're gonna look at the class system. Is there an upper, middle, and lower class? Is everyone equal, or is there a straight up caste system? Next, you wanna look at racial groups. Are there particular ethnicities that are more common in this setting, or is it mixed? Why is this the case? Next, we look at gender norms and expectations. It's very common for writers to include the same gender norms that we have in the real world, or try to mirror norms from past civilizations. These are reasonable possibilities, but sometimes it isn't believable. Why would a completely different world with none of our customs have the exact same norms that we do? Plus, a lot of writers don't thoroughly research gender norms throughout history and go with really incorrect generalizations, and quite frankly, readers are sick of that shit. Next, you want to look at prejudices and discrimination within your world. Like my last point, this is something a lot of writers try to base off history without doing proper homework, and they end up getting the facts all kinds of fucked up. Next is sexual orientation. How is it viewed? Is sexuality a social identifier? Because it hasn't always been that way. Next, we look at children, how they're raised, how they're treated, how they're expected to behave. This segues into schooling and careers. You want to break down how education works in your world, if it exists at all, and what sort of jobs are available, respected, and coveted. And be sure to cover any societal expectations or norms that your world might enforce, regardless of whether or not they fit into the aforementioned categories. Next is my absolute favorite category, and that's culture. This is what makes your world colorful and unique. The first and most obvious thing to nail down is whether or not your world has some type of belief system. On a related note, you want to think about holidays, celebrations, and customs. This could tie directly into your world's belief system, like for example Christmas, or it could have nothing to do with them, like President's Day. Next, you want to pin down my favorite topic: romance. How are relationships treated? What about dating, sex, or marriage? Is PDA frowned upon? Is sex liberal and free? Are there any romantic expectations at all? Next, we cover the arts: music, dancing, writing, theater, and art itself. Is this a thing in your world? If it is, what's it like? If not, why not? After that, we look at sports and athletics, aka shit I suck at. What sort of sports exist? Do they involve broomsticks and flying balls, or fighting to the death for sheer entertainment? Speaking of entertainment, what's that like in your world? What do people do for fun? You also can't forget about clothing, accessories, or body modifications. Are tattoos and piercings a thing? Do people color their hair? Do people wear underwear? The last thing you want to cover is ethics. What are some moral codes that people typically follow? This could be related to your religious system, or it could have nothing to do with it. Maybe honor is just an extremely important concept in your world. The very last category I'm going to cover is technology, science, and magic. I could make an entire video about this, but I'm not going to, because I've got shit to do. I combine these things because they often go hand in hand. For example, sometimes science is used to heal people, sometimes it's technology, sometimes it's magic. You need to figure out the extent of your world's technological advancements, their knowledge of science, and their magic system, if they have one at all. Nail down as many details as you can. The capabilities, the limitations, which people have access to it, which people don't. Because these three things are gonna come into play a lot more than you're probably anticipating. So that's all I got for you today. There are a bunch of other things you can potentially figure out about your world. These are just the basics. Additionally, world building can be a major time suck, so be honest with yourself regarding what information is relevant to your story and what isn't. It's great if your world has a complex, innovative irrigation system, but your readers probably don't give a shit. With that said, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I post new videos on Wednesdays, and if you want to be alerted as soon as I upload, ring that bell down below. Don't forget to check out Sheridan and Cooperative for Education. Be sure to use my 10% promo code, get yourself an awesome t-shirt, and help the kids in Guatemala discover their passion for learning and reading. If you don't, I'm judging you. I see you, and I'm judging you. And when you're done with all that, check me out on social media. I'm on Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook, and of course you can tweet me at Jenna Moreci. Bye!